Daily Faceoff insider Frank Seravalli. Frank, your thoughts on our boat?
It looks good. I would love to get a boat. I've been hankering to get a boat. I'd love to be on the water. Just haven't found one. Haven't found the time. So maybe I got to come up there and haul one back to the East Coast.
That would be a trip. That would be an absolute trip.
You know what? You know what you should do, Frank? You should get one of these side-by-sides and we'll drive it to Philly together.
I actually think
that would be
fun. Cooler than the boats, if I'm being honest.
They look
really
cool. I just want to get one as an everyday vehicle, to be honest.
I really want a tri-tune. So the pontoon, but with 3 of those things in the middle. Okay. It'd be that's like my end goal, my life goal is to get a tri-tune.
That thing must be huge if it's got the 3rd tune.
Yeah, it just basically makes it super comfortable to ride in. Like it's a party boat, and that's what you're into.
And they got big motors on them too, so you can tow the kids tubing with those things.
Oh yeah.
Nowadays, yep.
All right, let's shelve the boat talk for a little bit and get into the trade talk. Frank, I know you were on with our friend Bob Stauffer the other day, and you guys were talking about how maybe the Oilers' deadline plans have changed a little bit as of late. I don't remember the direct quote, but how do you think maybe they've changed? What's Ken Holland in this front office seen in the last month that would cause them to maybe think, we might need to go?
I think our guys are frozen there at Sherwood Power and Marine. I don't know if we're still live. Maybe I can just talk for a second there. I don't know who's producing, but just to kind of get what Tyler was going after in terms of the Oilers' deadline plans and how they might have changed. The answer, or the short answer, is I don't know that they've changed, but maybe the best way for me to describe what the Oilers are thinking about when it comes to the deadline is they're involved in a bunch of different discussions and different price points and different targets. And I don't think they've settled in just yet on exactly how they're going to attack this. I don't think they've decided yet whether it's going to be positionally, whether they're going to go after that top 6 forward that they were thinking about to really balance out the 2 lines, whether they're going to go after the 3rd line center position, or perhaps you could do both of those things at once in a package deal. And then what to make of the Oilers and their situation on defense. Like, I think the defense is pretty solid as constituted right now. But when I look at the Oilers and their overall depth, I would like to see just one more pure defender, true defense first defenseman that I think would make a lot of sense. And so I think the next question, when you consider all those things that I just laid out, is do the Oilers need a little bit of help when it comes to the goaltending situation? And maybe that's something that really wasn't on anyone's radar as recently as a few weeks ago, because Stuart Skinner's been different since the All-Star break. The Oilers' goaltending as a whole has been different. I also think it's fair to ask the question is, has the team defensively in front of them, have they reverted back to some of the things that we saw earlier this season that ended up costing the coach's job? And so that's really where we're at in terms of breaking down the Oilers' deadline. I'm just going to continue to rag the puck here while these guys are trying to get their internet situation sorted out. The other part of this is assets. The Oilers have them. They know that doing nothing is not an option. And so that's certainly something that, as they're trying to disperse what they're going to do here, they want to make sure that they get the best bang for their buck. And so that's the other part of this in monitoring the market is, understanding market prices, evaluating needs as they come up, and then trying to come up and formulate the best plan possible. I think the fact that we are February 28th now, 9 days away from the deadline, and we're looking at 26 days since the last trade was made. In some ways, I think that's actually been really beneficial to the Oilers here as they're trying to sort all this out. And that's really the spot that they're in right now in trying to get to that point. So these guys are working on getting their internet back. Thanks for hanging with us here on Oilers Nation every day. Those guys are out in the field, quite literally on a boat. And sometimes some of these technical glitches happen. I'd be really curious to see what the Oilers fan base in general thinks about the goaltending situation. Cause I'm with a lot of the fan base that has said, hey, Stuart Skinner's the guy. He might have been overworked here of late, but really we're in a spot where of all the other needs that this team might have, goaltending isn't one of them. Cal Pickard's played well enough. You've always got Jack Campbell that you could turn to break glass in case of emergency. And given the asset supply, they'd rather see the Oilers tackle some other things in a different order. So, it's a really fascinating scenario that comes up with the Oilers and the deadline. And I really couldn't pinpoint right now if you were looking at this scenario and to say, Frank, we're 9 days away from the deadline. Give me one position that you absolutely know that the Oilers would fill. I really don't know if I could answer the question. And so I've just talked endlessly here for the last few minutes by myself, absolutely ragging the puck. Glad to see you guys, teammates in play, to come help me out.
Oh man, Frank. And if people wouldn't know the behind the scenes of what just happened as well. So the internet here just completely shut off, which will happen. I mean, that's whatever. But our guy, Pat Puff, sitting at home watching the show, saw it, immediately signed into his producer sign in, and then took over producing the show as well. So a great team effort from you, Frank, for running around that whole time. We didn't hear anything. Did you just talk Oilers for like 4 minutes?
I did. I actually just kind of completely outlined some of my thoughts for the deadline, where the Oilers are at right now, kind of how they haven't narrowed down on any one specific position. And then I also raised the question toward the end of the goaltending. And that was kind of one thing that no one really saw 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago as a need for this team. That, look, I just think it's fair to ask the question right now, how comfortable does everyone feel?
Yeah, I think that's fair too. We started the show talking about Pavel Buchnevich. Hot story, obviously, because he's in town tonight with the Blues. What's the cost there? Like we were saying, 2 firsts and Borgo, is that enough to get you Buchnevich? Is it going to be 2 or 3 assets to get him?
Yeah, I think it's going to be 2 first-round picks plus a prospect. I don't know kind of what level the Blues are thinking. It's with 2 first-round picks, it probably can't be a grade A, but Borgo doesn't grade out right now to be a grade A. That seems like a pretty fair price to me. The next part is, what would the Blues take back in order to make the money work?
Pun intended. That's a boatload.
Ooh, well, But here's the thing. Tyler and I have had this conversation on Daily Faceoff Live. Pavel Buchnevich is maybe the most unheralded point per game player in the league. 192 games in St. Louis, 190 points. Plus, you get him next year at a very Zach Hyman-like $5.8 million. Ken Holland and Doug Armstrong are super tight. And perhaps maybe there's a way to make some magic here.
When we were talking about this, someone in the chat now, I'm quickly forgetting their name, but they were like, hey, if you like Buchnevich at 5.8, then wouldn't you love Frank Vatrano at 3.6? Is that a guy who could maybe find the market in Anaheim?
So my intel is that the Ducks are not really interested in trading him. They'd be in a spot where they trade Frank Vatrano, and I know that they're not close to competing, but then this summer they're out going to find the next Frank Vatrano. And so they're listening because, look, Pat Verbeek has to listen. He's in a position where, again, this team's not anywhere close and they need to make the best deals possible. One of the teams that's been really active on the Vatrano front has been the New York Rangers. they'd love to get him back, and he actually played really well for them in the playoffs before he ended up bolting as a free agent. But I don't see Edmonton as being one of those destinations. Maybe that's just me.
Liam, you got anything?
Obviously, defenseman is probably still a need for this team as well. And we've spoken to you about Chris in the past, but it seems like the Oilers are kind of falling down that list a little bit as the weeks get closer to the deadline. Is that fair to say?
Falling down the list in what way? Like, I agree with kind of your thought process, meaning like he doesn't seem as top of mind for the Oilers, but I'll tell you that they've still kept tabs on what the cost is because they're also monitoring the market in general. I don't want to say they're trying to make sure that he doesn't go to a team that they might have to compete against, but they want to understand like, hey, if Chris Tanev is going for X, is this a price that we'd be willing to pay? And could we potentially just get him for ourselves?
Interesting. Last one, I guess, before we let you go, because I mean, I think you've spilled the entire Oilers notebook while we were trying to sort out our Wi-Fi. But do you have any indication on when the market might pick up, Frank? Is it going to be later this week? Is it going to be, sitting this quiet until next Wednesday when we're 48 hours out? Do you have any read on it?
I talked to 3 GMs this morning in the hour before we did our live show, and all of them were saying, hey, we're making a ton of calls, but we're not getting anything done. A lot of it's checking market prices. A lot of it is trying to make something happen with very little assets. And the other part is it's really still there's going to be 40 names or 45 names on my trade targets board that comes out tomorrow. And really outside of, I don't know, 4 of them, I think the big question is how big of an impact will these guys have on a team's chances to win the Stanley Cup? Reminder, it's not always the biggest name, the splashiest name that leads you to Lord Stanley. But I think, still there's a lot of teams that are really uncertain about a tepid market.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Well, Frank, you did a lot of heavy lifting. Doug Waite is in and says, Frank is a total beauty. And you saved our bacon today, Frank. So thanks for doing this.
Just ragging the puck. I mean, I wish I could do that in pond hockey because I just seem to get it off my stick as fast as I can. Remember that time I fired it into a snowbank?
We
all do
top
that.
5 Jasper memory is when you turned around in like your first game, pow, right in the snowbank.
Well, we got next year to play for too. So
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Frank.
See you guys.
There you go. Frank Seravalli, Daily Faceoff Insider. And what's up, Nation citizens? If you like that video, then you need to be subscribed to the Oilers Nation YouTube. Podcasts, live shows, exclusive interviews, and analysis. Everything you need from your favorite voices at Oilers Nation. And you don't want to miss any of it, so hammer that subscribe button.